Hey, 42 here. This is the stunning 13th century Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore in Florence, Italy. And this is a modern take on a cathedral in Liverpool built in the 60s. This is the oldest shopping mall in Italy, the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele II in Milan, built in 1865. Similarly, this is the beautiful Cleveland Arcade in Ohio, built in 1888. And this monstrous bastard is a Tesco in Woolwich, England. This is the striking Moscow State Historical Museum in the Red Square, whereas this is another art museum in Graz, Austria, that looks like a bacteria you find in your gut. This is of course the fantastic Art Deco Empire State Building in New York. And this is the soul-destroying Verizon Building, also in New York. Notice the difference between these examples. Why is it that anything built post-war, from shopping arcades to libraries, are desperately, soul-destroyingly ugly? You don't have to go into cities to notice this trend. Simply look around at your neighbourhood. You may notice that some houses are strikingly beautiful, like this, or this. Whereas others may look like this, or God forbid, this. Then you realise the difference is that the previous houses were built pre-war, usually in the Georgian and Victorian eras. The ugly buildings most definitely post-war. In the Victorian age, people were proud of the homes they built. They put every effort into sourcing their highest quality materials to ensure they would last for centuries. Post-war houses, however, started to be built primarily for profit. Beauty and quality were shoved aside for smaller land plots, smaller rooms, lower ceilings, cheaper materials, and shortcuts such as cavity walls. Statistically, the average lifespan of houses has decreased over the decades. The average lifespan of a masonry and wood building is 120 years. A concrete and glass building is half that at 60 years. I know what you might say. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I disagree. Taste is subjective, but raw beauty is an objective, almost measurable quality. Plato said, "The object of education is to teach us to love what is beautiful." If we have to learn what is beautiful, that invariably means not everything is beautiful. For example, nobody would ever say dog excrement is beautiful, unless they're trying to shock you. And just because one weirdo out there has a personal liking for the appearance of dog turd, does not make it an objectively beautiful creation. The fact is that certain things are just objectively damn ugly, and give the majority of the population no pleasure. In fact, some things are so ugly they make entire populations depressed, and the statistics back me up here. People living in cities are 21% more likely to have anxiety disorder, and if you grew up in a city, you're 39% more likely to develop schizophrenia than your contemporaries in the countryside. To me, the reason behind these statistics is obvious. Humans evolved amongst the raw, unordered beauty of nature. For the 200,000 years Homo sapiens have walked the earth, we have only been living inside man-made houses for roughly 6,000 of those. It's almost axiomatic that a structure which imitates nature will be more comforting to our evolved sensibilities as human beings. And I don't mean like an ostentatiously metaphorical architect, such as, "This concrete slab of a building complements the nature it sits in because it features a vertical extrusion which allows the light to soften its edges. See how it almost disappears into the surroundings?" No. When I say buildings that reflect nature make us happier, I am referring to two distinct facets that achieve this symbiosis. The first is the material a building is made from. Stone is natural. We evolved amongst stone. Our ancestors fashioned tools and used them to chip away beautiful masterpieces out of a natural material that had always been there. Similarly, wood has always been an intrinsic part of the human experience. 1,000 years ago, the planet used to be peppered with forests as far as the eye could see in all directions. Stone and wood buildings are usually rather attractive. However, modern materials such as glass, steel, and concrete are all man-made. They are amalgamations of other materials. Over the vast timeline of human history, these artificial materials have only very recently entered our world. Before we knew it, they were thrust into our faces in every direction we turn. Glass, steel and concrete tower many meters above us. We never evolved amongst these materials. They make us feel uneasy. Glass is, of course, the least offensive of the trio because it allows us to see through it to the natural world beyond. The second facet that creates beautiful architecture is curves and detail. Curves and intricate details are an art form long lost to the world of modern architecture, which inexplicably favours arrow-straight lines and huge, flat planar surfaces, many meters wide. Curves are natural. The bend of a tree bark, the undulation of meadows. These are qualities we have evolved to feel comfortable amongst. Humans have a fundamental proclivity to adore the chaotic beauty of Mother Nature's great kingdom. Straight lines and huge flat surfaces make us feel uneasy. Like a stark white wall, there is no comfort to be found in it, only emptiness and solitude. One only needs to look at the curves present in classic Greek columns, so eerily reminiscent of the golden ratio, or the seemingly infinitely masterful details precisely carved into the masonry of great European cathedrals, to appreciate curves in architecture and see the obvious inspirations drawn from nature. Compare these to any inner city office block with its suffocatingly one-dimensional surfaces. Hell, Londoners are so abhorred by the disgusting array of lifeless towers of tosh erected in their city, they have taken to inventing humorous nicknames for them all, in a desperate attempt to inject some life into their dead souls. They call this one the cheese grater. This is the Pringle. This is the Helter-Skelter. This is the walkie-talkie. This is the armadillo. This, the salt cellar, and this is the gherkin, which has caught on so well that literally everyone has forgotten what its actual name is, which, by the way, is 30 Street Mary Axe. Wow, I think I'll stick to the gherkin. A YouGov survey found that a whopping 77% of respondents prefer traditionally designed buildings over contemporary. The real reason why most people hate modern architecture is that it disrespects our heritage. Humanity has come a long way, and the things we have achieved over the past 5,000 years are incredible. The great civilizations along the way, Constantinople, ancient Greece, Rome, medieval London. These are the civilizations that built the world we know today, and for humanity to ever forget that would be an odious act of treachery. But that's exactly what modern architecture seeks to do. By simplifying and forgoing ornamentation and frescoes, it erases the triumphs of the past from our greatest, oldest cities, and thus the public consciousness. Most of all, we adore traditional architecture because it subtly connects us with the past. It reminds us of our lineage each and every day, and the achievements we have made as a collective human race over the centuries. So, who do we have to thank for wanting to erase humanity's achievements off the face of the planet? Why did architects all over the world wake up after World War I and think, I'm going to start designing buildings that are fuck ugly? Well, I'm afraid we have to blame a Swiss Frenchman named Le Corbusier, who created a deadly maxim. He wanted to create architecture made of pure shapes and forms, without any decoration or historical associations. Le Corbusier actually drew up plans for a city for 3 million people who all lived in identical 6-story grey skyscrapers. If our ancestors wanted us to live in grey boxes, they could have just surrendered to the Germans. Corbusier, and those who followed in his dreadful wake, thought that function came before form. How a building looked was of far less importance than how it functioned. Off the back of Corbusier's ideology were born the schools of new architectural styles, such as Soviet constructivism, Bauhaus, functionalism or utilitarianism, structuralism, and brutalism. Within a few decades, our once beautiful cities turned into wastelands of repugnancy, devoid of beauty and taste. So, is modern architecture always a bad thing? For ultra-modern cities that didn't even exist or were not large cities 100 years ago, such as Dubai and Singapore, perhaps not. These places have a tinge of futurism to them, which gives them an exciting edge. But the absolute worst crime of modern architecture, when it really gets my goat, when it actually damages civilizations, eradicates beauty, is when it is placed amongst truly marvellous and historic cities. Paris is often said to be the most beautiful city in the world. Under Napoleon's orders in 1853, Georges Eugene Haussmann redesigned and rebuilt a devastated post-revolution Paris from the ground up. He was responsible for the seductively quaint, ornate houses, the grand boulevards, and relaxing public squares. Its romantic splendour has attracted millions each year to soak in the beauty. And then in 1969, some sadist plonked this right in the middle of it all. The Tour Montparnasse, like a scab on an otherwise attractive city skyline. London, one of the oldest and culturally richest cities in the world, which made it through plagues and fire, is now being destroyed by dreadfully dull tower blocks, like the painfully ugly Trellick Tower. The Luftwaffe may have flattened our cities, but in their place we rebuilt concrete and steel monstrosities that transformed what was once beautiful into an urban dystopian sprawl that wouldn't be out of place in a George Orwell novel. Birmingham is a prime example. Before the Blitz, it was an attractive testament to the great civilization it played a part in building. Now the entire city centre feels like a purposeless amalgamation of offensive, drab architecture placed randomly without care or consideration. And the worst offender, at the centre of it all, is this modernist mole, Birmingham Library. But you may think, if it provides housing, then why does it matter? Because people don't care about ugly things. These buildings are so visually offensive that people have no desire to actually look after them. The neighbourhoods that spring up around tower blocks, more often than not, reflect the buildings themselves. Why? Not because the people that have to live inside them are any different from people who live in attractive houses. They just feel as though there's nothing worth looking after. The value of period houses is significantly higher for the same square footage than new builds, despite requiring much more maintenance. Humans are drawn towards and have a need to preserve beauty. If we build beautiful houses and beautiful public buildings, then people will fight to preserve them, and so will our ancestors. Whereas ugly buildings get run down and very quickly abandoned, then demolished. Ironically, this costs a lot more in the long run. Instead of building for the next generation, we are building cheaper, uglier constructions for our short-term use, knowing they will one day be pushed to the side because nobody wants to bloody live in the monstrosities, and it will fall into dilapidation, then inevitably demolished. Ugliness is false economy. Beauty is eternal. Rome's Colosseum is almost 2,000 years old. Why? Because nobody over the span of 2 millennia had the heart to destroy such beauty, such magnificence. Sure, half of it has crumbled away, but that only serves as a testament to its compelling power to want to save what still remains. Do you really think in 2,000 years' time, urban tower blocks will still be here and have millions spent on them each year for their preservation? If a concrete tower block starts to crumble into the dirt, we quickly send the entire thing crashing down with explosives, because that's what we think of it. The Pantheon is just as old and in even better condition. Form does not come after function. I've never heard so much pish in all my life. It's actually the opposite. Form is everything. We don't venerate the works of Shakespeare because they're functional. His writings are beautiful. If function was more important than form, then students would instead study vacuum cleaner manuals in English literature. Nobody will fight to preserve something that is ugly but has function, whereas whole nations will band together to defend a beautiful building with absolutely no function whatsoever. Tourism aside, what function does the Colosseum serve us today? None whatsoever. We aren't keeping it around just in case society wakes up one morning and decides to throw a few politicians in there with a couple of bears. Its function is to be admired, to be respected, and most importantly, to connect us to our past. Because it's that past that makes us who we are, and architecture never lets us forget that. It gives us our identity, our sense of place and purpose, and dare we destroy that or mask it at our own peril. If you want to do your part in making the world a more beautiful place, then a great place to start is by learning design skills on Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes in illustration, art, design, and more. Premium membership gives you unlimited access to high-quality classes on must-know topics, so you can improve your skills, unlock new opportunities, and do the work you love. You could make your own living space better by watching the Skillshare course, Interior Design Basics, Simple Steps to Your Perfect Space. Or if you fancy improving the world for others, then you could learn the digital illustration skills required to become an architect by taking the course Mastering Illustrator 10 Tips and Tricks to Speed Up Your Workflow. Skillshare is really affordable. An annual subscription is less than $10 a month. Since Skillshare is sponsoring this video, the first 500 people to use the promo link in the description will get their first 2 months for free. Thank you for watching, and thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Be sure to check them out by using the link below.